today's topic, Mobility Showdown, Android versus iPhone. To outline today's presentation, we're going to cover topics like what makes a smartphone smart, which platform do new users want, what happened to the former big boy, Microsoft, RIM, Palm, what happened. We're going to also do a head-to-head comparison, iPhone versus Android, and then at the end we're going to determine who the winner is.
Who's RIM stand for? I don't remember RIM.
BlackBerry?
Oh,
see, look at that. We had question was, what is RIM? Lily, what makes a smartphone smart?
Its ability to do several functions, make calls, have apps, look at your email, surf the web.
Apps, web.
Yeah.
What else? What else, Miss?
Instant feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Instant feedback.
Instant feedback.
Okay. Anything else?
They can become a hotspot.
Become tethering. You have wireless and cable-based tethering.
Oh, no, I was standing the fly.
Oh,
I was going to say multitasking.
Multitasking is another good one.
Multitasking, like they say on the commercial, I think it's a smartphone this guy is using, and he forgot to make the dinner reservations or something, and he's talking on the phone to his wife at the same time.
Because of the technologies, you can do both. You can make calls and surf the web in case you forget an anniversary. Here are a few things that I put up. A lot were already mentioned. Email calendaring, web browsing, ability to install first and third party applications. It's funny when you think like less than, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, installing applications on the phone, why would I do that? A phone is a phone. But nowadays, you have all these things you can do just from your phone itself, that the phone part of it becomes secondary. Remember when we had PDAs like Palm, and now you have a convergence of devices? What other device do you see now merged into a smartphone? Yeah, there's one thing I'm thinking of in particular. Camera is a great one. And then there's also things like the iPod, the portable music player.
Yeah.
You used to have an iPod, a camera, and a phone, and now you got all in one. According to the 2011 Nielsen report, it was determined that one platform was more desirable than the other. What do people believe the most desirable platform was between January 1st and March 2011 potential buyers? iPhone. How many people say iPhone? Show of hands. Okay, so majority of people in the audience are saying the iPhone. It was the Android. 31% of U.S. consumers plan to buy an Android phone, whereas 30% now plan on buying the iPhone. So looking at the first chart, you'll notice that between July and September of 2010, 26% of potential buyers wanted the Android versus 33% who wanted the iPhone. Looking at this chart, is there anything that kind of sticks out? Look at the not sures. There's still quite a few people who don't or undecided. Have you guys ever watched the Discovery Channel where you see the little wounded animal that's soon on its way to be devoured by a lion? You see those low bars there? That's the fresh meat section. So you look in that fresh meat section, you see what used to be the smartphone, like the Palm. We actually have an actual trio still in attendance. Stephanie, show everyone your trio. So they are still out there in the wild. But as you can see, based on the data, that trend is slipping and slipping. And Symbian, which is the operating system of Nokia models, the recent news there is that Microsoft, they made an agreement with Nokia, and they'll soon be replacing Symbian with the Windows platform. Also, Microsoft, you can see that they're desired about 6%, and the BlackBerry has slipped from 13 to 11%. Let's take a look at the next chart. Here's the market share based on recent acquisitions. People who are just now buying phones, you'll see that the Android is pretty predominant with 50% acquiring phones that have the Android OS, whereas the Apple iPhone has 25%. And you'll see the numbers get smaller and smaller as you go around the pie. So BlackBerry now commands about 15%. BlackBerry used to be very desirable, and now they've lost a significant amount of market share. So they're up against the ropes. Windows was a late entry into the smartphone game, perhaps too late. Some question whether or not they can really make it in the U.S. market. So one of their strategies is to go overseas, kind of start there and perhaps grow their market share out there. But they've almost all but conceded defeat in the U.S. market.
Is that with the Google system?
Which one?
The Windows Phone, is that with Google?
See, it's funny you should ask. No, the Windows Phone OS is the Windows Phone OS. I doubt Microsoft runs much of Google anything.
The search engine is Bing.
Right. Same thing with search. They have a competing product to Google's pretty much ubiquitous search engine at this point with Bing. But just like with the smartphone, it's like I know sometimes their tactic is to wait and see, but sometimes you can wait too long and opportunity passes you by. The mighty fall. What led to the fall? I mean, you had the 800-pound gorillas with Microsoft, with RIM, with Palm, and then something happened. It seemed like it was almost overnight that they weren't the big dogs anymore. From this audience, what are some additional thoughts and additional what's out here? Mike?
Well, as far as the iPhone coming into play, I mean, that's kind of like the big market mover, right? Mm-hmm. I think what Apple did is they took the style and the aesthetics and the cool factor of all their other products and brought it to the phone.
So we're saying style could have been the selling point that differentiated it?
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, Apple knows sexy when it comes to tech. You know, they make it desirable. They can take something that could be less powerful and have less features, but they market it so well that it becomes desirable. Funny story, I see Tony has an iPad. I went to the Best Buy in Compton when I was looking for one, thinking that, hey, nobody's going to have, they're going to have plenty of them here. And I'm going to get mine, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to walk right out, no problem. I got there, and I swear the line was wrapped around the store. So when you hear, hey, you know, the economy's bad, people aren't buying anything, if you got the right product, people will wait in line and step over, you know, their mama and whoever, or make their kids wait in line to get that new hot thing that they must have. And when you think about it, even with the iPad itself, it's not significantly enhanced over the first one, but what is it about the product itself that makes people want that they just have to have it? It becomes like the it thing. And Apple probably does that better than anybody.
Okay, can I piggyback on what you said there? Mm-hmm. Two stories. One, I don't know if you all, there's this cartoon on the internet describing a woman who goes to Best Buy to get an iPhone, and she doesn't really know what it is. She just knows she wants it, and she says, "I want the iPhone with the Wi-Fi's and the big GBs."
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it's like, okay, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about, but you know you want this just because you want it. Then another one, a friend of mine, her daughter came to her and said, "Mom, I want the phone where you go like this." You know, because you unlock an iPhone by sliding across.
By making the swipe motion?
Yeah, but she had seen this image on TV where somebody unlocked their iPhone by going like that, and that's what she wanted.
Wow.
Like 4 or 5 years old.
Oh my God.
And you see videos like that too with like the little toddlers who they put an iPad or an iPhone. And I'm saying iPad and iPhone interchangeably because they're effectively the same experience. So that's another selling point. So if you understand an iPhone, chances are you'll understand an iPad. It's pretty much the same type of experience. But you know they'll have it in front of a toddler, and a toddler, you know, they're going to town on the phone. They know where everything is. They know how to do it. And that says something about your product, whether it's technology or anything. If a child can understand it, then maybe you don't need to spend so much money on creating a manual. So the next slide we're going to talk about some features. There's an article in a blog called Lifehacker where they outline what they believe to be key features in a phone. We may or may not care about all these features, but we want to kind of go through quite a few of them just to see what this audience feels about that functionality. And they've also made a determination based on their own set of criteria as to who the winner was in each category. This is just one group's thought on the matter, and we're each entitled to our own. So just wanted to go through some of these features that separate the iPhone and the Android. Ease of use. We talked about that just a second ago. You know, the iPhone deemed the leader in that category. One of the reasons for that, I don't know, how many people have played with or owned an Android device?
Messed around with one.
Messed around. What were some of your thoughts regarding the interface?
Not ease of use.
Not as easy?
Yeah, I kind of wonder where things are. I mean, the prominent icons, you know, and I'm just thinking about it in the store. I pick one up and like, okay, well, I know where that is, but what else is there, you know? How do I find it? I didn't try to do a search or anything like that. But.
Okay. Yeah, because my own experience, you know, playing around with a Samsung Android phone was there was the applications tab. When you press that, it takes you to a screen with all the applications. But the initial screen didn't have a whole lot on it. So I didn't know where to go. It wasn't as intuitive. But once I knew where to go, then I got it. But it was something that I had to learn. Openness. So by openness, we talk about the platform itself. You know, the iPhone is regarded as a walled garden. It's like you get the experience that Apple was carefully crafted for you, whereas the Android is open. You can do whatever you want on the device. You can move things around, and it's open source. The platform itself is created by Google, but Google derives its revenue from their Android work primarily by advertisements. Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Google makes certain that their ad platform is the ad platform for Android devices.
I'm not sure.
Okay, not sure. And for those who are listening to this, you can send me an email if I'm wrong. It's more open, just like a lot of open source projects, so you can do more with it. The source code is viewable. It's easier to tweak because you can see what's going on under the hood.
So when you're talking about openness here, is there any indication to jailbreaking your iPhone?
Not necessarily. Open in this case means there's no need to jailbreak your phone.
Okay.
If you want to install an application, you can.
Yeah.
And you can either do so through the Android marketplace, or you can actually go to sites and download, install stuff on your own. And you're not limited to what the provider itself wants you to have access to. Battery life. Now, this is one that you don't really think about so much, but it's very important. As devices get more and more functionality and utility, and you can do so many things with it, battery life becomes important. Phones do things like even navigation. They actually consume a lot of battery power nowadays more than ever. For people who still have traditional flip phones, you'll hear the argument that, well, my old flip phone, I never have to charge it. I can go weeks and weeks. But you think about it, how much use you get out of your phone outside of making phone calls. I see people on their iPhones and Android playing games on it all day long. Before you know it, your battery's down to nothing. Battery life, in this case, the determined winner, according to Lifehacker, was the iPhone. Part of that reason is because they control the platform and the experience, so they know exactly how much battery power you get for your device. They control the apps that are certified in the App Store that can run on your device, whereas with the Android platform, it's a little bit open. Some apps drain more battery power than others. Multitasking. Prior to the iPhone 4 OS update, multitasking was something that was very touted and desired. It was one of the differentiators at the time for Android, because you could toggle between applications and you can have applications running in the background as well. Whereas the iPhone, prior to that OS 4 update, it was like one at a time. It's like either you turn it off, you turn the app you're in off, and then you go to the other app, but you couldn't jump between apps. So even now, it's kind of a muted multitasking because it pauses it. It doesn't really run it in the background. It more or less hits the pause button, and then you switch over to your other application. But multitasking is, of course, that's something that's very desirable if you're on a web application or any application. You kind of want to pick up where you left off. It wouldn't be the best experience if you were to switch between shows, like maybe in your Netflix queue, and it kept starting you over at the beginning. So it's a much better experience if it picks up right where you left off.
So I got a question for you as far as streaming and multitasking, because on my BlackBerry, I can listen to Pandora. I can start up Pandora, listening to my station. I can put Pandora in the background, and I can go check my email, surf the web, whatever. I'm still listening to my music,
right?
Whatever, but I'm still doing my web stuff. I try to do that on my iPod Touch, which is kind of like an iPhone, but not really. And so I turn on Pandora, and I was like, let me go to Words with Friends. Trying to go to Words with Friends, and my music stops. I'm like, what's going on here? Something's broken,
No.
Yeah.
But so in iOS 4, can I stream and go do something else, or is it just pausing where I was and letting me do something else and coming back to it?
In iOS 4, it may be different for the touch, but I assume it is the same, since they're all practically the same, that certain applications are allowed to run in the background, Pandora being one of them.
Okay.
Pandora doesn't pause when you switch to a new app, it continues to play. And I know this because whenever I'm feeding my 6-month-old son, I have the baby lullabies playing on Pandora, and I'm playing Words with Friends with Mike. So multitasking was communicated as a tie. The next key item would be software keyboard. For those of us who've come from BlackBerries, they had to have a keyboard. That tactile response was key. And then here comes a device like the iPhone, and you look at it when it was first introduced, before you even interacted with it, and you're like, it only has one button. What is that? Who wants that? There's just one button. How does that work? where's my sliding keyboard? There's got to be a keyboard that slides out of the back or something. They did something innovative in saying, you know what, we're not going to have a keyboard at all, which was weird, frankly, for a lot of people. But like most technology, you kind of get used to it with time. Now, you won't find a sliding keyboard on an iPhone, period. They control the experience. Steve Jobs said no keyboard. So guess what? You get no keyboards. He knows what's best for us. So he told us we don't need keyboards, and we said okay. Now, with the Android, it goes back to the openness part of it. Because you have different device and hardware manufacturers, some say, yeah, we'll provide a keyboard. Others say, nope, we're going to go the iPhone route and not have a keyboard at all. But you as a consumer get to pick which device works for you. And if you fall into that camp where you absolutely have to have a keyboard, you're probably going to end up with an Android if you're trying to make a decision between those two platforms. Tethering, that's something, how many people here know what tethering, we're referring to by tethering? Okay, not everyone in the audience. So we talked about our devices doing a whole variety of things now. One of the new things, and it troubles phone companies, is the ability to make your phone a mobile hotspot. So that's great when phone companies are making money off of that service. Not so great when they're not making money off of that service. So
Money off of it now because they charge you for it.
Yep, Tony, you got it. They're making money off of it now. For instance, AT&T charges about $20 a month for about 2 gigs of data. But the idea there is I could turn my phone into a mobile hotspot. I can pay for it, if I have an iPhone, or I can go the jailbreak route, which is something else entirely, where it unlocks the phone and I can actually download other applications so I could use it as a hotspot. The way the Android wins in this area is because they have a variety of tethering software that's available in the marketplace. And that's actually changed as of a few days ago. It all comes down to money, right? So a lot of carriers are saying, you know what, you're consuming all this bandwidth and all this data. We're not making money for it. You're now using it as your mobile hotspot for your house. You're not paying for your DSL or cable modem anymore. We have a problem with that. Our kids have to eat too. Okay, forget your kids, but our kids have to eat. So we're gonna do something about it. We're gonna start charging you for it, or we're gonna make those tethering services a lot harder to find. So for the average consumer, if the tethering service isn't available in the little marketplace, you probably won't go so far as to jailbreak your phone or to root your phone if you have an Android. But for those who are a little more hardcore about it, there's still ways to do it, but they've really limited the ease and convenience of doing so for the majority of people. So when this article was written, tethering, Android was a clear winner, but as of, again, a couple of days ago, even Android we see that they're not immune to the carriers cracking down. Release and update consistency. That some people care when there's an actual OS upgrade. Some people not so much. Overall, the experiences are relatively the same. With iPhone, there's going to be a new iPhone out the next year, probably around the same time. If it's February and you didn't buy the phone last year, you may want to wait for the announcement to get the phone for that year. Now, with Android phones, I see it all the time. You can buy a phone and 2 months later, they're giving your phone away. You spend $200, it's like, okay, now we're giving that phone away for free, and we got another new phone. You feel a bit slighted. You don't know when to jump in. With the iPhone experience, hey, if I got the iPad 2, I know there's going to be an iPad 3 next year, but I got my iPad 2 early enough that I can be the cool guy on the block for at least a year before I know what the specs are for the next iteration. That's one area where the iPhone wins. And also because the Google Android platform, the release dates aren't consistent across the board. There's the pending OS release for Android called Honeycomb. Not everybody gets it at the same time. It depends on which arrangements Google has with certain carriers. It's not everybody gets it the day it comes out.
So what about having an iPhone in white? Is that?
Oh my gosh.
That's not even a hardware or software update. It's like, okay, now we just have this phone in white. I know there's going to be people out there that throw away their perfectly good silver or whatever iPhone, say, I got to get the white one.
It's amazing. It goes back to just that whole, just your point, Mike, about Apple knowing how to sell what we don't necessarily need, but something as trivial as a color change. It's white, so what? Buy a white case, if you need a white phone. But something as trivial as that is a major product announcement on their homepage. When they had the news, it was the item on the page. And guess what? It immediately went back ordered the same day it came out.
I think it just goes back to exclusivity. Everybody loves exclusivity. Everybody wants to be a part of like the new or in thing or the thing that other people don't have. So Apple has taken that concept and ran with it and said,
plain old marketing.
Yeah, it's just good old-fashioned marketing.
Yeah, it's like we could come out with all the colors of the rainbow, or we can say, guess what? Everything's black out the door for years 1 through X, and then we're going to change the colors so that people who pick this up will be in the minority, different and envied by those who have prior model. I don't know anybody personally who bought like an iPhone 4 and said, you know what? I can't use this thing anymore. I need a white one. But I'm sure they're out there. I myself was one of those crazy people who were in line for the iPhone 4, so I won't even tell you how long I waited. I'm embarrassed to say. Ask me when the recorder's not on and I'll tell you, but I'm embarrassed. One of the other things, they didn't plan on doing this, but it happened, was it became very disruptive to markets like Nintendo and Sony PlayStation for games. How many people do you see playing Angry Birds during the meeting? Or Words with Friends? How much are the majority of these games? What do they cost?
$1.
$1. 99, not $1. That's too much. 99 cents. They cost 99 cents. That's that sweet spot. You add a 99 to the end of anything. People psychologically, it's like, hey, I save a whole penny. You know what I can do with that penny? I can do a lot of things with that penny. I got to buy this now. And it's just one of those things. And actually, it was addressed in one of Nintendo's conference or a main event, I forget which one, but it was like, well, this is disruptive. We have a problem. People are buying effectively the same game. There are cases where the same game that's on a Nintendo DS or Sony PlayStation Portable, it's $30 or $40, and then on the iPhone it's $5 or $4.99 or $9.99. But if you wait long enough for any iPhone product in the iTunes store, it'll go to 99 cents eventually. They trained me to wait for it to go to 99 cents. I mean, just the store experience itself, you press the button, you own the product, immediately downloads. With the Android store, gaming, not so much. Developers find that developing games for the iPhone is a better platform for getting revenue, and then also for just having a unified experience. They don't have to worry about configuring for devices that have keyboards versus non-keyboards. It's all the same. So there's value in some things just being all the same. So gaming has been one of the major things for the iPhone. If you were to look in the iTunes store, like for the apps, you would think maybe there's a lot of business apps or productivity apps. Almost 90% of the apps are games. Like the top 25 apps are games. Whether free or 99 cents, games are selling on the iPhone at least. iPhone, guess what? Apple has got iTunes. iTunes, one of those things when it came on board, it disrupted the whole industry. No one saw it coming, and then it just happened, and everyone was buying music digitally. Android has struggled with a competitor to iTunes. Amazon has stepped up and said, you know what, we'll be the iTunes for Android devices, and they have a pretty good storefront, but iTunes has really got the market down and the ease of use down and the branding down. Everybody knows what iTunes is, and even if you had an Android phone, for those who aren't up on tech, they're probably saying, how do I get iTunes on this phone? They're really lacking in the music store category. Some of these other areas, I don't think we need to really focus on too much as differentiators, like integration with Google Apps. Well, I'll just ask a loaded question. Who do you think has better integration with Google Apps? The Google device or the Apple or their competition? Google device, exactly. So based on this Lifehacker article, they ruled the Android as the winner. But if you were to take out some of the Google-specific stuff like we just did, it's more of a push. It really depends on what you're looking for in a device. So who really wins in this head-to-head competition between the iPhone and the Android? We do. You do. The consumer. We win. Competition's good. So we would hate to have Apple solely take over, or we would hate to have Android solely become the predominant platform. As competition comes in, prices go down, technology gets better, everybody has to stay on their toes. Just because you're Microsoft or RIM, 2 years, someone can totally kick your butt and take all your market share away. That's just the nature of tech for a lot of things. So you can be big dog one day, and then the next day you're like, what happened? You know, where's my empire? We the consumers win. Just some other thoughts, just for for us who are here today. What do you believe the future holds for mobile computing in general? Lisa?
I think it's going to get a lot better and cheaper.
A lot better and cheaper?
Yeah, as soon as you can gather that other 18% of the unknowns.
Yep.
It's going to get even cheaper. Well, what does concern me is the launches, the future launches. Just like this year, I think iPhone 4 came out this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're
It
going
did.
to have iPhone 5.
iPhone 4 came out last year. Late last year.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to have iPhone 5 now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that kind of ticks me off. If you spend however much now for this, and then a few months later you have more functionality, I'm going to be highly upset.
Now remember,
that's technology, period.
Yeah, that's almost like the nature of the beast.
But when do you jump in? It's going to get a little confusing. When do you jump in?
Right, and at least with Apple, you kind of know when to get in, and you know how long you have before it's obsolete tech. Whereas platforms like the Android, sometimes you don't know. Because for those who just bought like the Verizon Thunderbolt, now they got a whole brand new phone like 3 months later, and you're like, wow, I was a cool person with my 4G phone for like 3 months, and now you got another phone coming out, and it's really hard to tell, to know when to get in. You know, with the technology itself, like Tony said, it's just the nature of the beast, that something better is right around the corner, but how soon is it around the corner? It kind of sucks when you spend a lot of money and something better immediately comes out. Let's see, any thoughts on the future of mobile computing? Well, what about the second bullet? What about the whole PC landscape? First it went like you have PCs, and then you have laptops, and everybody had a laptop. Now you got things like iPads and tablets, and people aren't buying laptops, or they're really considering buying an iPad over a laptop these days.
And I'm still stuck on PC.
And some are still stuck on PC and Trios.
I have the laptop and I don't use it.
So what does the future hold for the PC landscape? How do we think the PC landscape is going to look maybe 5 or 10 years from now? Will people still have that dedicated desktop at home, or is that going to be limited to?
I think at home it's going to change quite a bit to where people are using handhelds and mobiles more than the dedicated PC. There might be some kind of dedicated central storage for the house. Keep all our files here, whatever. But the interface itself will be a tablet or maybe a netbook or something like that. But I think business is still going to stick with maybe it's laptops. But I think businesses will still stick with the things that are a little bit less mobile because they tend to get broken. They don't want to insure them. They don't want to replace them. They don't want to maintain them. So they're going to stick with something that's a little more solid, a little less mobile, and I don't know, maybe a little bit easier for everybody to interact with.
Okay, so maybe the robustness itself is a selling point for something like businesses. It's hard to lose your desktop or put it in your car and get it stolen because you didn't put it in your trunk, or
I kind of think your desktop is going to go away over time because if you look at the overall cost in business, it's almost cheaper to have your employee, depending on what we do, of course, stay at home and work on your laptop, communicate with the job, so you have less overhead at work. So from a business perspective, it's going to be more cost effective to businesses. Now, will PC go away? Not immediately, but I think you're going to have more people working from home.
No, I definitely agree with you there. 5 years out, maybe not so much, but 10, 20 years out, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. Goes back to the old argument of having a mobile workforce that can work anywhere, win anywhere. That's something else we hear. But maybe not have as much of a employee footprint at a facility. You
guys can all be in the same room, but via computer, because everybody has a little camera on their little unit, and you all be there discussing and exchanging and sending notes and tweeting, etc. So you can still conduct business.
Yeah, especially for small, mid-sized, and startup businesses. Yeah, they're not going to have offices.
I wonder when Starbucks is going to start running office space. Like have like little stalls, you know, where you can go and have your mobile office. Because that's what people do anyway, right? You go there, I see people with printers, and it's like, come on, you're going to be here all day sipping that cup of coffee. All right. As far as innovation, what do you think the next innovation will be for computing in general? We've seen the evolution of the big mainframe to PC to laptop to now phone device consolidation to tablets. What might the next evolution be? How are we going to interact with data?
Well, I can think of two innovations, and it may just blow everything away, but one would be holographic displays. Mm-hmm. So, you got your tablet, or any display now is kind of flat, mm-hmm. but I can see displays that are three-dimensional. And then also the same thing for your input. So, say you got this tiny tablet, or even a phone or something like this, and you want to do something that's kind of a little bit more intensive than just hacking out with your thumbs. Mm-hmm. You want a full-size keyboard, so maybe you set it down and boom, you got a something you're just going like this, and you're not touching anything. You're the buttons are there, but it's just like something down here kind of senses, they pressed over here, so that's the J or whatever,
Great technology.
So
energy driven.
Yeah, so I'm thinking three-dimensional displays and keyboards.
And then for those who still wanted a tactile keyboard, maybe that'll still be an option. Like I slide my keyboard out.
Slide it out or something.
Although I have this perfectly good holographic interface.
And then the next one will be just battery life. We got to get to a point where we're not tied to a plug in a wall, mm-hmm. where you can go maybe a week or two without having to charge up your phone, your tablet, your laptop, or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of these technologies.
Battery life will surprise.
Oh yeah, indeed. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's going to be Apple. I don't think it's going to be Microsoft. It's going to be some startup company, some college, PhD student that says, I figured out how to make a battery hold a charge for 2 weeks. And he's going to be the guy, or his university department, whatever, some startup company that kind of steals the show, I think.
Maybe get some safe nuclear battery.
Or some hydrogen or something. Yeah, I think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, it won't melt down in your pocket.
Well, I'm going to kind of think out of the box a little bit. I'm going to say Windows Phone.
Windows Phone, okay.
The software is already there. Mm-hmm. They're pretty innovative with some of the displays that they have. And I've never used one before, but they say, you can look at all your data right there on the front page or whatever. And then, again, thinking about this three-dimensional stuff, they got the Kinect on the Xbox. What if they were able to miniaturize that technology and put it in the phone?
And that's interesting. You mentioned the, even the 3D interfaces. You see 3D capability on things like the new Nintendo 3DS. Mm-hmm. I hear there are some smartphones from device manufacturers that are supposed to be 3D capable. So we're saying that the innovation could be just in the whole user experience.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, maybe Microsoft is successful. Maybe that strategy of kind of leaving home and coming back champion works out for them.
Yeah, maybe they'll have time to take in all the good stuff from the Android and the
mm-hmm.
iPhone and put it into their platform with their own innovation. So, a possibility.
We think about the U.S. as being the market, but there are a lot of markets out there. Mike mentioned the Xbox with Kinect. Truth be told, in North America, Microsoft kind of dominates a lot of the gaming landscape for consoles, whereas you go to countries like Japan, and you'd be hard-pressed to even find a Xbox. Okay, so this is good. So any additional thoughts before we conclude today's presentation?
Did you go out into the community and do presentations?
Hey, we are in a community doing a presentation. We are out in the community. We don't go to the park and do it, but churches. You can come from church and come here.
I don't know.
So yeah, we're open to it.